Hola community, welcome to Blender Today live on a Friday today because I couldn't do the show on Tuesday and I didn't want to let too much time pass before the next Blender Today, which I do every other week, which would mean a whole month without updates, and I didn't want that to happen because there's many changes coming, and Blender 5.1 should come out in less than a month, and it's planned for March 17th. So we know how things go. Sometimes things get delayed for a week. I think this release in particular is fairly safe because of the winter of quality, which actually came to an end. There's no more quality in Blender. There is quality, but the project, the winter of quality, because most developers are in the northern hemisphere where it is winter at the moment, and the numbers are back. There is about 350 report issues that were fixed, that were addressed, which is super nice. It's not as high, if you remember, as the previous winter of quality, but that is expected because the first time it happened, I think there were 500 issues that were reported, and this time only 300, which is still a lot. But in the first round, it was also about closing all issues, and it's easier. Some of them are easier to close than others. This one in particular, there are 350, so it's also a good number. One from December 1st to January 31st. And you can look at the numbers of each module. Each one has a module overview of the issues that they closed or worked on, or also work in performance. Actually, in this case, some of the changes focus on stability and quality of the code, but some of them also performance. So not bad. You can read this on the code blog at code.blender.org. I'm gonna paste the link if you wanna have a look later in the chat. By the way, this is live. I'm looking at the chat, but I have it on a separate screen, so if I miss anything, sorry about that. But it is live. I'm streaming live from the studio. Actually, it's Friday today, and every other Friday here in the studio there is the weekly. You can visit the Blender HQ to see what the studio people or developers are working on, and at 5 o'clock, and it's the same time. I wanted to go get some mate to refill my mate, and it was so awkward. I go downstairs and everybody's super quiet. The canteen is full. They're about to watch Singularity by the Blender Studio. It's not finished yet, but the renders are coming. And yeah, well, actually 100% render. That's the last blog post by the studio. And so it is, whoops, sorry, here. And yeah, there seems to be working. There is even some spoilers, not some spoilers, some things marked as spoilers. So you're not getting a spoiler here, but interesting that it's actually coming to an end. Maybe what they're watching downstairs is almost finished. I think the premiere would be, oh, I don't, maybe they didn't announce it, but there's a festival in the Netherlands. That's all I'm gonna say that I know. But yeah, you didn't hear it first here. Let's see what else is new in Blender, the Blender world. So I have a bunch of notes as usual. Also, something else is new this week. Blender is new. If you're using Blender LTS, either 4.2 LTS or 4.5 LTS, the latest one, make sure you update, because Blender 4.5.7 LTS came out. I think it was like 19 tweets, changes, fixes, and I'm thinking about Twitter because I posted on all social media, not just the worst, which is Twitter, but because I just mentioned it here. It's the one with the most reach, unfortunately, still. But it's fine. We are not promoting it on Blender, on blender.org. The thing is that I mentioned here 19 issues were fixed on 4.5.7. 4.2.18 has 4 issues fixed, and I also mentioned a tweet here today on that you can also try the beta, because that's where the bug fixing happens, and the next release should be the one that is most stable. Anyway, I also mentioned if you also like to live dangerously. I wonder if anybody got the quote. Nobody got the quote. Nobody mentioned it. Otherwise, I would have expected something else. But we're also, by the way, we're also mentioning. I was mentioning social networks. We're also on Blue Sky and on Mastodon, so you can get the exact same news over there. So over time, I think we can stop using Twitter. That will be amazing. But for the time being, you can follow all the other social networks, medias. Here, someone in the chat, I'm using 4.2. Good. And go update then, because the latest release is there. And remember that LTS updates are completely compatible, or should be, with your current installation. So it's just gonna, all your files should continue working, all your add-ons, your whatever, everything should be the same. Your settings are the same. Anyway, let's see. And if you're in 4.2 LTS, though, consider maybe jumping to 4.5 LTS at some point, because support is going to end in July 2026, which actually support means that there will be no new update. But if it's stable for you, you can continue using it until your generations, but forever, basically. So, but, you know, maybe consider jumping to 4.5 LTS, which has plenty of goodies and is supported with bug fixes for a bit longer until next year. What else? Let's see. The other thing to mention is that Blender, for the 21st time, has been accepted in the Google Summit of Code project. This initiative by Google that pays developers to contribute to open source projects. Blender has been applying since the first one, and many good contributions and contributors have come from this program. It's crazy. Like even Sergey, head of development, participated as a student in one of these Google Summit of Codes. So pretty crazy. Actually 21 years, because it's every year, every summer in the Northern Hemisphere. But yeah, it's crazy. Anyway, anyone can apply. I don't think you don't even need to be a student anymore. Just anyone newcomer to open source who is 18 years old or no older can apply. And there are already some ideas, some idea projects for this year. Some of them, I'm not going to go through all of them, but there is split into modules. So VFX module has some, actually quite some. For example, if you feel like implementing support for OpenTimeline IO in the video sequence editor, that would be amazing. And this could get into Blender and you could get paid for it. That would be awesome. And there are also some other ideas. However, the ideas in this page, they're not just, it's not that you can only work on these ideas. You can also come up with your own ideas. So make sure to you know, reach out, write a nice proposal, and you may get accepted. More information in this link that I'm gonna share in the chat, but you can also find it on Dev Talk. Blender has been accepted for GSOC 2026. Here you will see the dates. That's important. You will see the dates that you can. The coding period starts in May until August, and the submission should happen before that. Just look at the how to apply page. All right, I think it's all. We have Winter of Quality, Summer of Code, LTS. Time to see what's new in Blender today. Animation. One change in animation. There is now an operator. Oh wait, by the way, let me maybe switch the theme of my system to be dark so it doesn't blind you with the websites. This is because I learned that when you switch to a new page on a browser, by default it blinds you with whatever theme setting you have on, white or dark. This patch adds a new operator to replace all uses of a given animation with a newly created one. Super nice. Create allows you to replace actions one for the other. So nice. I think this is also related to the to the replace users. But yeah, Code Quality Project 2025 is now being part of it. So cool. Then A for annotation. Okay, annotations is a whole section. Somebody worked on it. Phantom Soldier King worked on it by bringing back, reintroducing some Python API functions that were missing for strokes new, stroke points add, remove, and frame strokes remove. Very welcome. Thank you, Yosheshoda Patil. Sorry for killing your name there. And next we have A for assets. There are, okay, well, it's not much to show about assets here because, okay, let's go by parts. First is a UI change, very small, in the preferences of the, let's go to preferences. You will find here asset libraries, which didn't used to be there, right? Remember, there was in file paths, there was a panel here called asset libraries because you set the path for the asset libraries. However, asset libraries are more than that. There's just more than one path, not like just a path. It's a path. They have preferences, and it should be more higher level, right? There's a whole editor related to asset browsing. So they have been promoted to this own section, asset libraries. And here is a bit of a spoiler of something that I was trying to test, but it's very broken at the moment. So broken and so how could you say it? It's fine that it's broken because it's expected to be broken. Why? Because it's at an experimental setting, and as you know, in BlenderToday we don't look at things that are not in main, that are like branches to come. However, this is technically in main, but it's experimental, and I try not to show experimental things because even though I love all the developers in this building and online in the community, the thing that something lands as experimental in main doesn't mean that it's going to be in main soon. Unfortunately, I know. But there are some examples. There are some changes, some options here. Shader node previews. No one is working on it, and it's still there for the longest time. And there were other options. Texture paint, prototype is there since, like, you can look at the numbers, 96,000. We are now in the 150 or so thousands. So yeah, you can. I just rather not show things that are not yet in main. However, this in particular is supposed to be there in 5.2 LTS, we hope. But I don't want to promise anything because I just tested it and it's still work in progress. So basically, if you enable the remote asset libraries in settings, you will notice that the asset libraries here, this panel that we already know, right, that you can add an asset library, becomes a drop down instead, or you can add local, which is the regular ones, or remote asset libraries. So yeah, and this should have dots, right? Because this opens and pop-up, so you need more information. So I think that should have it. But anyway, this I couldn't make it work. I just add an example option there that the guys added, but it's anyway, it gets stuck in just loading for like a 10%. It only loads the catalogs, so I don't. And it actually broke my layout. Like I can go to current file, essential, like all my built-in libraries, and they're broken. I think I need to open a new browser, and now they show up. So there is a lot of issues to tweak. But anyway, this means that remote asset libraries are in main. They're a huge work by Siren, by Julian, by Dalai, like overseeing everything. Everybody's been involved in this in one way or another. The web team also, Anna and Oleg. But it's still work in progress. Let's move on to more sections. We have attributes, we have authors, benchmark, BLI, Blender line, BB line, BLI. These functions, actually, usually these things are very under the hood things, and but sometimes you find that they adjust a function that is used in other places, which means that some other places will get optimized faster, right? If you fix some math that is used for modeling or for UV and for other parts, then you're fixing like the core situation there. This is one of those. This is actually related to detecting the file, that something exists, that the file exists in your disk. And this is used multiple times. But in one of those cases is when you, for example, open the file recent, like you have there. If you want to know if something is there or not, you could show it grayed out, or you could show, some more information, or allow you to remove things if they don't exist anymore. But yeah, in this case, this change made it up to 20, well, from 1.5 to 23 times faster finding out if a file exists or not. So not bad. Thanks for that, Harley. Let's move on. Let's see, build changes. That's very internal things. Clang or clang. Cleanup. Blender keeps getting cleaned. CMake, code owners. I've been doing some tweaks to the script, that collects all the commits. Now, when things are no uppercase or lowercase, it doesn't make new sections, so that's good. And GLTF is also properly sorted. They used to be all the way at the bottom. That has been fixed. Okay, let's jump into C for color management. One change here by Tobias Kammer from Overmind Studios that adds support for the new OpenColor.io 2.5 configuration features. This adds interoperability, ID, and ICC profile attributes. For the image output, the ICC profile name is now used to find an ICC profile to embed, and if not found, Blender will fall back to ICC profiles that are bundled with it. And for OpenEXR output, the interoperability ID attribute is used to embed this metadata. Super nice. More studio work. Next. Compositor. Actually, plenty of changes in the Compositor. The Compositor is now so much faster. So much faster that you can even play animation while previewing the Compositor. Have a look. Most of the changes are by Omar. This is great. Look at that. The Compositor. Draw viewer entirely on the GPU. Something that used to take 100 milliseconds now is 1 millisecond. So let's look at this. This video in the left is how it used to be, and on the right is how it is now. I don't know if you get to see it on YouTube, but it's really laggy. On the left, you move the gizmo and the background takes a while to update. That is, I think, there are multiple reasons, but one of them also is like, okay, you draw one thing, stopping drawing that, and then draw the next. This one is just faster. And it's also in the GPU. Everything is done through the GPU. For 1K images, it's already good time feedback. For 4K images, still slow. But that will be worked on. It will be improved in a future PR, says Omar. Hey, it rhymes. Thank you so much, Omar. And there's more work here coming. This is it's not related to performance. Wait, maybe I can just mention the other performance improvements this week. The improve animation playback scheduling. This patch improves the scheduling of compositor jobs while the animation is playing. So basically now we prefer to finish the compositor job instead of not showing you anything. So that's the core principle is show me some frames is better than showing none. You may have noticed that if you have compositing and you play back or you scrub around, you move frames, that it takes a while for it to update. Not anymore. So thank you so much, Omar. That being said, you can also now play back animation while what I was saying before, but here you can see playback while editing in the Compositor. Blender will follow the frame dropping if needed, but yeah, you can preview it. So cool. And it's all GPU. Nice. This one I was missing it for so many years. Would be nice to have some kind of like a pre-comp step where you would play the animation, it will cache this, so you can preview it more. Would be super nice. I mean, you can do it with the sequencer, right? If you are in the same scene and you let it cache, you can preview it, but something more integrated with the compositor would be nice, just for the compositor. All right, let's see what else is new. Okay, this change is by Habib, adds a new checkbox to enable or not file extensions. I don't know who of you will disable file extensions, but anyway, it's an option. Now in the you can append file extensions. I think this has to do also with Blender giving you the option to do so if you have some scripts going on that involved this file output, or they're automated or farm scripts. It's always good to have the option. So that is a very welcome addition. It's just a checkbox that allows you to add or not file extensions. Then WCloud, this developer, has added gizmos to control the viewer backdrop and crop, and it's so nice. It's basically just this. It's a way to scale the crop and the backdrop of the viewport, of the backdrop in the node editor viewport. In the node editor sounds a bit confusing otherwise. But anyway, this is great, but was even better. So it's how simple the PR is. When I saw it, it was like, I didn't know it was that easy. It was literally just adding an RNA in draw options that are the same, that are already, because they're very generic, this system. So it was only a matter of adding it to these two node crop setup and node transform setup. Nice. Let's move on. Let's close some tabs. And auto keyframing. So when you have auto keyframing on, it's now supported for the split gizmo. So when you have it on, you can actually key if you move the gizmo, it will key those the position to where you wanted it. That's actually super nice. I didn't expect this even to work, as in I thought it was just a visual thing, but you're actually, it's a gizmo to control the values of the node itself. So makes total sense. So thank you, Habib, for that one. And this has been also added to the box and ellipse masks. So same concept. You have auto keyframe on, you start moving the gizmos of this, and it will basically animate it back and forth. Amazing. Nice. And the same with the oh, nice, using the demo is using the replace or swap node operator by Quackaruni. Super nice. Awesome. Thank you, Habib. And also for the crop gizmo. Last but not least, there is an optimization to the distant threshold morphological operation. What does it mean? Distance erode. This, or maybe it's used elsewhere, but I couldn't, because it doesn't mention it directly in the commit, but it affects a node composite dial erode.cc, that file. So I assume it's used for that, and it makes sense, right? Distance threshold morphological operation. So yeah, it's optimized. Actually, it should be much faster now. It should be much faster when these on big sizes, like up to from 25 from 7 pixels and higher, but when it's less than 7, it's actually slower. That's a small issue, but usually 25 pixels size plus 25 pixels inset is 20 times faster in general. So very welcome addition. So I think it's a good trade-off. Although I wonder if it's being slower, why not keeping the old algorithm? And if less than a value, use this. If higher, use this other value. Maybe it's not possible. Maybe it's just messing with, I don't know. Let's continue. C4 core. We have a few changes here. One of them is oh nice, an optimization. Do not generate thumbnails for blend files saved in temp paths. So whenever you have a file that crashed and then you reopen it, or you're working on your temp folder like Windows temp, Linux, macOS, then you don't want to save. Well, you don't care if thumbnails are saved or not. So just to save some memory, save some size on disk, Blender is not gonna store thumbnails they're basically useless thumbnails for these files that are in your temp folders, because they're gonna be deleted at some point. You're not gonna be using them. Just move them outside of the temp folder if you wanna save those thumbnails. It's a bit of a performance improvement. And oh, this is actually related. This is also by Omar. Is handle finish jobs immediately. This is in core because finish, well, the job system in Blender is very generic. Job can be baking, rendering, any job, loading the asset libraries, for example. So this allows to finish earlier or immediately. As soon as something is finished, stop the job, because this is closer to fixing an issue that I had with the transformation lag. So just so you have an idea how jobs are everywhere. Next, let's see, there's curve stuff. There is some cycles changes. One is a refactor. It seems like it's coming from the summer or winter of quality, because it's a change. It's a refactor by Brecht, the creator of cycles, that changes cycles to use per corner normals instead of splitting normals. This fixes a number of issues, but also brings it more in line between Blender and cycles, with sharp edges and mixed flat and smooth faces. It does use some more memory, but is compensated by earlier octaedral mapping. Cool. So in the benchmark scenes, it used to be about the same or even lower memory, so not a big issue. If you find any issues, please report them. Then more optimizations and automatically guess color space based on OpenImageIO and OpenColor.io. Blender, for the Blender integration, we get the color space from Blender, from the user definition. However, for the standalone, cycles is not GPL, is Apache, it's a different license. So it means that it can be integrated in other software. It's still open source, free and open source, but it can be closed, unfortunately. But anyway, that makes it compatible with Blender, and some other software can use it as well. So for the better, you want the other users to benefit from cycles, even though if they're using other software. So that way, the render, at least the shading, the nodes, the rendering is all shared across the industry, right? Anyways, cycles has a standalone version that you just fed it some data and it just renders without Blender. It's crazy. And this color space is now guessed from the OpenImageIO and OpenColor.io versions. Next, we have some optimizations, half float, denormals, and optimizations. This is a big refactor by Brecht again, that switched to a more accurate half and half float conversion. It changes some things internally, and even add unit test, and it fixes some issues with half float image low values that are clipped. So thank you, Brecht. And last but not least, something that will get excited to many people, especially in studios where they're using cycles to render giant scenes with giant textures. Okay, don't get too excited, because this is a hint of what's to come. It's not in cycles yet. But there's a thing that was just committed that is called texture cache file generator. This will is a generator using OpenImageIO that basically generates cache files. So it takes a texture and it brings and makes a TX file. For the time being, this might change in the future, but it opens a TX file that is basically a cache, like MIP mapping. So what does it mean? Well, something that it was attempted in the past, and basically makes it so Blender can use different texture sizes, can generate cache, different texture sizes of your images, and use them as needed. So if you have a character that is, if I have this plant over here that is, my textures are 16K because I have some heavy close-ups, but here they're blurred and not really that big, Blender would automatically switch to use a smaller texture size, which is more performant. So you can have more data in the screen. And that is something that every time I go to NSE or any event where studio people drop by and they ask for that feature. So it's good to see that it's coming soon. TM. Next. Some dependencies changes, some documentation. Eevee. There is a new change in Eevee by Trita 11. This adds a new control. I love it when they add more configurations, settings, and more settings to tweak your renders to your liking. This change in Eevee makes it even more flexible. Add light path intensity controls. Basically, you can control direct and indirect light intensity individually. Isn't that great? So basically, this adds indirect and direct. Maybe I can show it at least where the setting is. I'm not gonna go deep in Blender, but there is a in Eevee, the same way that in, well, I don't have cycles. I have cycles. Of course I have cycles. It's built in, but because I use a light build, Blender hides it. Anyway, you know how cycles has a light path menu? Well, Eevee too has a light path. You know how cycles has a clamping setting, right? And some other settings here. Eevee also has, but now Eevee has the clamping, but inside clamping you have surface, volume. This was already there. There's a new panel here called intensity. This is what it was added. So you can go from 0 to up to 3. What is it? Well, up to anything. So the UI goes up to 3, but you can actually go pretty high. I wonder why not 10 in the same way that cycles does it. But anyway, you can control it individually for direct and indirect lighting, which is awesome. I think the creator here has a image. This shows 1 or 2.5 increased ray tracing contribution. Bam. With more. Bam. Up to 11. Cool. Nice. So yeah, pretty welcome. Thank you so much, Trita Norosi, for this contribution. Let's see. Does it qualify as NPR? I think it does. Next. Bunch of fixes. Blender keeps getting fixed during the winter of quality and beyond. Let's talk about geometry nodes a bit, actually. There is not that much, although there is much. Come on, there is like 3 new nodes. But, you know, we are spoiled. In number of commits, not that. But yeah, there's 3 new nodes. Grid to points node. This adds a new grid to points node. Each active tile or voxel is turned into a point. The voxel value is stored as anonymous attribute on the points and is output as a field. Additionally, information about each voxel or tile in index space is provided. So yeah, grid to points. Super nice. Look at that, even with a nice panel and everything. So cool. And the next one is called Clip Grid node, also by Brady, and adds a new node clip based on minimum and maximum indices. Voxels outside of the bounding box are deactivated and their values set to the background value for that grid. If a tile is partially clipped, or is it fully voxelized before relevant voxels being clipped. Let's see. There is here a video. Can look at it. Clip in grid. Yeah, clipping to the grid. So integer inputs and outputs. Wait, why is it set to float and is integers? To be honest, I feel like I spent too much time not following geometry nodes so much that when I look at things like this, it's like maybe I'm probably wrong. However, the algorithm on YouTube has been very good with me lately, because it points me, like whenever something like this happens, it points me to the CG Matter YouTube channel, which is doing a fantastic job of making short videos, 8 minutes, 11 minutes of these new nodes. And this is awesome. So the raycast node, for example, that I'm gonna talk about in a bit, because it's also a new node in this week, is being explained in this video by CG Matter. Super nice to have a dedicated video for these things. However, I have to admit this is a bit beyond, goes into some math. I don't know why it's not loading. I'm gonna share it with you on the chat so you can watch it. But everybody here probably follows 300,000 subscribers. Probably follows CG Matter, because he also did it for the SVD node as well. So pretty welcome. I don't know why this YouTube is not playing. But anyway, maybe my ad blocker doesn't. It's not. Maybe if I disable it. Oh yeah, it was trying to load the ad. Come on. Anyway, that is it for this. Let's see. Geometry nodes, another node, but this one by Cartesian Caramel, another artist turned developer collection children node. It's a new node that outputs the objects and collections list from a specified collection, either directly or recursively. This, since this node output list, is still an experimental feature for as long as lists are. Yep, so cool. Let's see. Well, I mean, I say artist turned developer, but maybe it was the other way around. Maybe it was a developer and then turned to artist. Ooh. Nice. So this is getting the... Where is the node being used? Ah, here, collection children. It's a list of objects. Get the list item, apply some stuff there, and then it puts it out back again. So cool. Let's see. Blender subscription 1, never. Never. Let's go here. Let's see. Oh, the integers are the voxels. Nice. Thanks. Good to know. Now I didn't. I missed that part. All right. Let's see what else. Support string fields. Nice. This is so apparently this was it was working before, but it was not enabled. Now it is. Says Hans. The commit says currently strings fields work, but we haven't enabled them because strings can't yet be properly used as attributes. However, with lists, we have another use case for string fields. This PR enables that by distinguishing types that work with fields and attributes. Many sockets also don't work, and setting the function node status for our strings processing nodes. Note that showing strings is currently unsupported in fields. But yeah, so something like this should work, where you get a random value to string, and then you replace a string, make a list, field to list, pass it on as fields, and then get the list item, and it should work. Nice. Let's see. What else? Hello, Bart at Blender. Nice. You are moderator, right? Yes, thank you. Let's see. What else? Ghost Wayland, Git, GLTF. In GLTF, there is two features. One, add point cloud export. Hey, that's big. Point clouds from geometry nodes and point cloud objects are now exported. Nice. And the other one, hooks, GLTF hooks, makes it possible for hooks to fail the export. Yay! It's possible to fail now, guys and girls. Using is critical flag on the hook is if the hook raises an error, the export process will be stopped. So nice. GLTF is important for many reasons. For exporting to Godot or other game engines, for the web, it's super important. And this developer is now part of the Blender Development Fund grants. So this work is happening. It used to happen, wow, we went under 8,000. Wow. During the campaign, it used to be 8,300. You went up to 300 or even 400. I remember I have pictures of it. I have YouTube videos of that. And now we're below 8,000, which is a bit sad. I mean, money-wise, it's doing fine because there's more contributions by big sponsors like Netflix and Arrowhead. But it's a bit sad to see individuals because this is the number that matters, because these are the people who are less likely to drop all at once instead of big corpo once dreams don't happen, as the numbers don't fit, unfortunately. So yeah. Anyway, let's see. Is Julian Drode? I don't know how to spell his name. I don't know either. Is French, so we can only try. Only a French will be able to do it properly. Let's see, what else? Chris Pencil. Export fills with holes by Folk. This implements exporting fills with holes to SVG and PDF. You can finally make PDFs with Blender. You could before, but now you can have holes in them. Why would you need PDF? For taxes? No. Well, maybe yes, who knows. But these are very important for making, storyboards. Like you can make your own storyboards, such as with Chris Pencil drawings and maybe some text, maybe geometry nodes, maybe some text strings with geometry nodes and Chris Pencil. And now they support holes because letters usually have holes, right? Like the P in Pablo, the B in Blender usually has a hole, so this will improve it in that way. Also SVG, so nice. And did you know that? Well, did you know that Blender supports animated SVG export? It does. We can export to animated web GIFs, not GIF, but SVGs. Anyway, another change. This is a quality of life improvement of a design task that I made some time ago, that the move to layer menu doesn't support groups. So something like this setup where you have a layer, like a Grease Pencil layer, and then a Grease Pencil group with layers inside, wouldn't show up in Blender. It would just show up flat like this, like no mentions of groups. And this is terrible because it is not easy to read. And now something like this. So this was my proposal. It looks like this. It should look like this with submenus for the groups. And this has been implemented. So wait, this has been implemented here in this pull request by Ethan Luo. Thank you, Ethan. This is how it looks. You can now in the shortcut M or in the menu stroke move to layer group, it will look like this. You have the menus. They are listed first, I think, because of limitations, but basically, at least they are grouped. You can also create new layers inside that group from this shortcut. So pretty nice. Thank you so much to Ethan for working on this and for the community to proposing this. So nice. I love the enthusiasm, everyone. Nice. Alberto. Harry, I submit my taxes as storyboard, so this this is great. Of course. That's so Nice. Can we import PDFs? That's a good question. I don't know if we can import SVG. PDF, sorry. No, we cannot. That's unfortunate, right? Shouldn't be that. We can import SVG. So, no, I don't know. A good question. Make a right-click select proposal. Okay, next. Image. Oh, nice. In the image section, Omar made it so the image editor now draws using the GPU. In these tests, the speed is insane. It goes about 20 times faster. A 4K image that used to take 25 milliseconds to update, like when you redraw, is now 1.25 milliseconds. So cool. Yep. So the limit is usually 8K, but this is amazing. This affects the image editor, UV editor, and the node backdrop editors. Not really an editor, but the node editor's backdrop. So cool. It's a resurrection of another task from 2023, and it fixes many issues. And so cool. Thank you, Omar. You're killing it with performance these days. In the images section, not image, Brecht added support for AVIF. Well, enabled support because it was already there using OpenImageIO, I believe. But now this, I don't know, he went ahead and implemented it. It's actually 200 lines of code. So yeah, AVIF, it can be used for saving HDR images that work in most web browsers. And unlike HDR PNG, it can use lossy compression to make file sizes much smaller. This is another option to like WebP, for example, but in some cases it's even better than WebP, and it's supported pretty much everywhere, except YouTube thumbnails. I already tried and it fails, or WebP, one of those. It's just not there yet. But yeah, it's so cool. Where do you enable them? In the same place as usual, in the output. You will find it on the top actually now. So in the top section, the most used ones, AVIF, JPEG, OpenEXR, PNG, WebP. And what is the default in Blender? PNG still? Should it become something else? Should it be AVIF at some point? Right now the default is PNG, and AVIF is so much more flexible in that sense. It goes up to 12 bit, so it's consider HDR, high dynamic range. It doesn't do AV PNG 16. Okay, next. Mesh. In the mesh or modeling, there is a new change that I mentioned last. Am I repeating myself? Anyway, it's always a good reason to repeat. The seam and sharp delimit. Ah, no, this is what I mentioned in the live stream on last time. Yes, because Jonathan Lampol added an option you could see in the previous episode, where when you have, for example, loops, and yeah, I don't know, you have something like this, and then you can select the loop, and sometimes the loop goes all the way to the limits, right? Well, now there is an option where you can delimit, you can change the limits. So you can say, okay, only inner corners, outer corners. You can shift click to select multiples, engons, sharp, seam. So if you have, if I have a seam here, right? Like Control E, mark seam. So would it work in the seam? There you go. It limits to the seam. Nice. And then I make this. Let's say this bit, I'm gonna mark it as sharp, and then right click, delimit, sharp, nice, and then seam. So cool. And then both, what happens? It selects only this bit that is between the seam and the sharp edges. That's so cool. Thank you, Jonathan. Another one that you will be showing at the 5.2, I hope, videos of the Blender features. Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan. Please keep on coming. Very much welcome modeling improvements. All right, more quality of life improvement. Quackaroni. I said quackaroni during the sound, which is like the section is not called quackaroni, even though I would love to. It's called notes, but this change is by quackaroni, which adds a quality of life improvement because AOVs were just a text field. When you were selecting AOVs, let's see. So when you were selecting an AOV in this field, you will have to type it by hand, like it's the 90s or something. And yeah, it was, no, even in the 90s they had search. Anyway, not anymore because Quackaroni made it an wait, ooh, it even shows the socket. I didn't know that. It shows the socket until it's, oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, so now you can just click and it will filter by, it will show you the ones, the AOVs there. So you can actually search, you can even shows the icon. That's so nice. And when there's no icon, it shows the empty icon. It's a bit weird at first, but it makes sense. So thank you so much. Awesome. All right, what else? We have some Python stuff, but nothing really relevant that it comes to my mind. And then we have I never noticed that the README, the official README in the Blender repository, had, well, it was using HTTPS for blender.org instead of HTTP, not S. And Ipsit Depenat noticed it, made a PR, and then is now in Blender. So he got his own pull request bit of Blender. He's now an owner of a part of Blender, and it's cool to have that. Refactors and release changes. Yeah, we're now in alpha, L5.2 LTS alpha. Some reverts, refi that gives you better errors, and sculpt, quality of life improvement. Have you ever tried to sculpt or in sculpt mode, have you ever tried to, I don't know, make a mask and then you would see nothing, and then you keep making a mask with the shortcut that you learned and you wouldn't see the mask? It could happen that the mask overlay was disabled, and that would happen very often, sometimes, so much so that Nasir Galimov went ahead and made it so Blender will tell you, hey, overlays are disabled, or the opacity for the mask overlay is set to 0, or the face sets overlay opacity is set to 0. So really nice quality of life improvement when Blender tells you what's going on. So in this case, for example, the overlays is disabled, and I don't know if you get to see it, it's down here, it's a bit tiny in this demo, but yeah, basically when something is disabled for mask, which is set to 0% or disabled, Blender will, well, no, wait, disable mask, that number is fine. I think it's testing here, but okay, at some point basically Blender will give you a warning at the bottom that says, hey, this is opacity 0. Here, viewport overlays are disabled. So it actually does plenty of checks. If the mask is disabled, if the face sets and overlays. So nice. Thank you so much. Heart and a rocket taking off. Why not? Okay, cool. Next. Well, again, what I was mentioning, shader. In shader nodes, there is a new node called Raycast, and this, I already shared the video by CG Matters. I'm not gonna talk about it much more. So if you look at it well, I shared it before actually. So yeah, go watch CG Matters video because he explains it much better than I could ever do. And it's similar to the other to the one in geometry nodes, so it's not, you're not missing much, not that much new to learn. Although you need to you can do crazy things too. You can make use cases for cavity and curvature and rim, although it's not a one-click thing. You need to do some tweaks there, And I hope in the future we can add some cool, wow, this is cool though, in the intersection, to blend in intersection, the materials, like imagine sand and water with actual intersection blending. That would be pretty cool. I hope we can add some assets, some built-in assets, even now with the, well, online, but also not online, not always online, offline, to be able to ship Blender with some of these setups pre-made, because some of them involve more than 1 or 2, 3 nodes, and so cool, awesome. So yes, thank you Miguel Pozo for this, and Clément Foucault. Next, oh, cool. Have you ever used the normal map node and wonder why things don't look as expected when you move to another game engine, for example? Well, that's because there are some conventions, OpenGL, the Blender one, and there is DirectX conventions for normal maps. Well, now you can actually choose. You can actually see in the node itself, you can choose OpenGL or DirectX. So nice. Let's see, what else? Shape keys, one operator added by Hans that allows you to apply to bases. So this operator applies the deformations of the selected shape keys, even multiple, to the basis key and then removes them. So super nice. Then we have some tests, some tools, and in the user interface, the UNI section, this quality of life improvement that was requested on right-click select so many times actually is like, if we go to right-click select and search for like swap dimension, hey, the importing PDF is already there, swap resolution or something like that, I think it was. But yeah, button for quickly, this thing had like 12, and then it was also requested 2 other times that had these 2, and this one had 27 requests. It was a button, it was a horrible mockup, but it was a button to switch the resolution X, and it's also in Spanish. Is anyway, this thing is not, it doesn't look like this, but the functionality is there. This doesn't look like this because it's not usual in Blender, which is fine. We could live with that. However, if you have more operations, for example, lock, you want to lock the proportions, right? You have the 1920 by 1080 and you want to adjust one and affect the other. You want to lock this. Then you also want this lock, right? You want to lock that it's in that place. So we shouldn't use that place for that. And the swapping is something that you should do once. So why not implementing it as part of the context menu? So here I have the 1920 by 1080. Say I want to swap. I want to have it as a vertical, a portrait render. So I can right click, swap dimensions, click, and Blender makes it portrait. And then again, as long as you want. The implementation for it is super straightforward actually. It's just it started by Irex, and then we went through it with Harley, and the implementation, like if you actually look at the operator, it's really just swap X, Y, and then by XY. That's it. Super tiny. And then there is some code to add the context menu, and that's about it. That's the whole thing. There was some back and forth because implementation went through other iterations, right? There were some previous attempts with an icon over here and then with this button over here. So I like this. I like it because this is something I like about design in general, is to be able, if there is a change that is controversial, try to take the part of that is not controversial, that you want regardless of how you implement things, and implement it first. And this is one way, because if you have this button over here or a button in the header, either way you want the operator, And either way, you want it in the right click context menu, regardless, right? So that's why this was picked and then added this way. So it's nice. Let me know what you think about it. And now that I know how things get added into context menus, what else would you think would be nice to add a context menu? Like this kind of operations that are convenience operations. Let's see. Next, some small changes. Adding, being consistent when I'm using the file blend icon, which is not, it wasn't. Sometimes it was using the tool icon for a blend file. It's when you open an asset in Blender. So say you are in the asset browser and you have a file, you can right click, open blend file. This icon is now using the Blender icon, also in the sidebar to open this. Here it was using the tool icon. Small things, just consistency. Also the refresh icon wasn't being used always for asset library refresh. I think it should. Then, oh, this is a nice one. There was a right click select proposal that I think it was on right click select. Well, basically in Blender 5, this popover was introduced to be able to hide some of these tabs. So you can basically come here and then hide some of these tabs, right? However, I don't know if you noticed the issue already, but the moment you click on this popover, because every popover in Blender opens centered, it meant that it was covering the action. You couldn't see what you were doing. So now, so cool. So now Pratik made it so it opens on the side. So you can actually see what you're turning on and off here. There you go. That's so nice. I mean, you could also just maybe right click, hide tab if you want to be more precise. But I like it. Nice. Anyway, much better. So nice. You can actually teach things. By the way, this is something that is implemented. I think it's on all the. It was very generic. It was going to be an option, but now it's generic. So when using a vertical navigation bar, it will always open to the side. If there is space, of course, if there is no space, it will open to the other side. Smart AI. No, kidding. No AI was involved in this. Next, tree view. You can now sort items alphabetically. And you would say, wait, Blender can already do that, right? When you have vertex groups, you can sort them or not alphabetically. Like if you say A, you can. Well, this is UI lists, and this is a tree view. Looks the same. Eventually, they will be the same, but tree views didn't have that. Now they do. So it's cool to see this, which doesn't work at all. Wait. Okay, now it does. Wait, lowercase a doesn't. How is lowercase a less important than uppercase p? I didn't know uppercase matter. Okay, that's a bug, I think. Capital A works. Is that a bug or is just how computers work? Might be missing something here. Next. Let's see. Oh, Quackaroni again. I mentioned this on the live stream last time, and Quackaroni went and implemented it. Basically, the asset libraries had a new option to be able to disable them. So nice. But it was implemented with these checkboxes on the left, and we usually have this on the right. So Quackaroni went and fixed it immediately. Thank you so much. Node panel. There were some. I think I mentioned this in the last live stream, and now have been merged and now part of Blender 5.1. So cool. In 5.1, now you will see that nodes, regular nodes, any nodes, have a bit of a different look for the panel. There's no more color sub panel like there used to be, and it's all in one line. So you can actually more quickly now access this than before. Before you had to open the panel, first enable the color because it wouldn't work, and then change the color. So now you can actually just work on it. Okay, what else? Oh, show option. This is also not, it wasn't enabled anywhere. There was, the only way to show or hide the options was via the node context menu. Not anymore. Now you can do that from here, and also you can toggle mute from here, which is super nice. I wonder if this works for multiple, if I select multiple nodes, like let's select all the nodes. Can I, oh yeah. Oh, so I can do this, like I can do, so if I set this to green, and then, Alt doesn't work for that. But the setting the color, yes, and color options too, and muting also. I'm holding Alt to see if it works. So nice. Let's see. That's it. Oh, and then propagate. Now it's sorted. It used to say warning propagation, which could never fit in this size, and it would say all. And now it says propagate all messages. So you can see there is messages, errors and warnings, errors and none. This is also sorted by if it makes sense or not, basically. Sorted by sense. This is how it used to look. Oh, and now the icons also are gone, because there used to be icons in these fields, but it doesn't make sense. It's not something you can click. It's not something you can, it doesn't tell you anything really. I was just taking away some space that now is better used for the actual text. And there's also a placeholder text there, just in case you haven't read the left side. Okay, next. Oh, very small change, but I never noticed how the decimate modifier never, it didn't, the face count in the modifier didn't split in thousands. So you will have to see, okay, how many? Let's check. Let's do the math. There is 7 digits, so okay, it's millions. We're talking millions here, and you will have to do the math. Not anymore, because thanks to Simon Prager, there is now 1000 separator here, similar to how it's in the statistics from the viewport. Next, Wayne Dixon renamed coefficient to constant for the expanded polynomial modifier. Apparently that is more correct. He was wrong, so thank you. If you don't find the coefficient, look for constant. Next, movie clip editor. Chris Ivana made it so when there is no clip, it would actually tell you that there is no clip, and there is no, okay, here there is a picture. So yeah, basically the sidebar was empty. There was nothing there. Now there is a panel that says no movie settings, no movie clip active. So small hint, quality of life. And the issue also, one of the issues was that because the background of the sidebar and the background of the editor was the same, it looked like these buttons for zooming in, the gizmos, were floating in space. Next, apply preference, reduce motion to panel open and close. When the reduce motion setting was, well, when you collapse and expand the panel, there is this small micro animation, which is most fine for most people, but some may have an issue with it. So we'll it's now possible to disable that through the accessibility reduce motion setting. Once this is off, this closes immediately, the same as the panels. Sidebar close immediately, the pie menus open immediately. We don't have to wait for it to open. It's just immediate. So yeah, when you click to zoom in an item, for example, it goes immediately. It doesn't do the animation, the smooth view. Yeah, that is applied in most places. If there is anything that we're missing, please let us know. But yeah, reduce motion. Okay, next one is it's actually pretty huge, because I've also never noticed that you couldn't copy paste enums or enum values in Blender in general, and now you can. So here, Ilya made it so you can copy paste from an enum. Maybe this is something for, it's a bit of a UI change that can also be mentioned part of the Harry Blends news, because it is mostly used on places such as nodes, where you want to copy paste a value from one to another, and you couldn't before. Now you can. So nice. It will give you an error when it can't. Next. Well, if you've used Blender recently, you may have noticed that the popovers look slightly different than Blender 5. I just happen to have Blender 5 here, so let's compare. Let's see. What do you notice difference here? Let me give you a hint. It's these here on the left. These are panels, sub-panels inside of popovers, and these are also sub-panels. However, in the past, you couldn't collapse them, and now you can. You have this tiny little triangle here that makes it possible to collapse unused panels. This is so nice, because as of recently, the Blender remembers which panels were closed. So if you never adjust the viewer node, or I don't know, any of these things, like you only care about guides, cool, you can just keep it there. This applies to other places. Actually, this means these are not panels. Maybe we should implement it here. This is a work in progress. We want to do this in more places. I think this panel has it. So lighting, wireframe, options, and cavity are there. If you only care about cavities, now you can delight yourself with just cavities all along and don't care about lighting. This is also wrong. We actually have to, this is work in practice. This is 5.2 alpha, what used to be beacon 1. The wireframe color also has object color. This needs to change. This would be what color, I guess, and then wireframe, object, background. But yeah, anyway, we're working on it. We have our best engineers and designers on it. I like it how cavity, how it got away with a very unusual layout. We never do this, of a panel or sub panel to have an enum on the right hand. Like, that's wild. We never do that. The most we ever do is just a panel for presets. That's as far as we go, and this somehow passed the review, which is fine. We can pretend we haven't looked at it, because it's so convenient to just change this while the thing is closed, no? Or shall we call the police? Let's pretend we didn't look, we didn't see anything there. Let's see what else is new in Blender. Thank you, Guillermo Venegas, which, again, Guillermo is now hired by Blender Foundation. You got a grant for in the development fund thanks to your support. And Guillermo is going to be working on UI in the UI module. So nice. Option, add a new option to disable render. Okay, this is this is not really UI. This is beyond UI. This is a render change. This pull request adds a new button, a toggle in the output panel that allows you to disable rendering. And you may ask, why on earth would I want to disable outputting? Well, not disable rendering. You can still render, but it's not gonna output anything. Why on earth would I want to disable this? Well, when you're using the Compositor and you have file outputs, why is output? Oh, down here. Anyway, and you had a file output, Blender was so eager to keep you safe that would always save both the file output and the whatever you had set up in the output, and then ending up in making trash. So much so that I was watching some YouTube tutorials on setting up this, And the recommendation by the creator was to just add, you know, like trash delete me after, something like that, and then it will make a folder just to delete it afterwards. So lame. Anyway, now there's an option, just disable output, and Blender, if you try to render animation, Blender will tell you, hey, error, unless you have something connected to the file output. That's it. So cool. No more trash folders. Yay. So thank you, Habib, for this one. Next, okay, this one is really UI. It's just the brush tool icons. There are now a few variations. They're very, very subtle. Some changes are very subtle, but they are a bit more different. Right now, I think up until now, Blender was using the same icons for most of the annotations. So now the annotation, the delete, and the grease pencil and sculpting, they all look slightly different. So very nice. Welcome. Thank you, Julian Kaspar. Then the Live Elinto added a indicator when there are no other scenes. When is that happening? Well, when you try to add a scene to the video sequencer and there were no scenes, Blender will just show you an empty scene strip label. Yay. Thank you, Dalai. Folk added a quality of life improvement that makes it so the move to first and last items in the extras of a modifier menu will be grayed out when they cannot be moved, when there is either last doesn't apply or first doesn't apply. Quality of life. And last but not least, well, actually this is, I already mentioned, Guillermo worked on improving these panels, layout panels, and there were some items that were hidden when the panel was, when the checkbox was off, and that would mean you have empty panels now. So not anymore. Now they are grayed out but not hidden. And that's it for UI. Let's look at viewport. There is one change. This is also a feature request on BlenderToday. Actually, somebody asked for it during the live stream, and then I asked them to make a right-click select proposal, and they did. And based on that proposal, which is here, it's the proposal is to have a specific theme setting for the major grid lines, the ones that are in between, like not the small ones, but the major grid lines, because so far Blender only had one option for this, and this has now been split into two settings. So you can now set the grid colors and the major grid line colors. So comes in pretty handy when you want to be able to tell, you know, it's for accessibility too, right? If you really want to see every meter, every 10 units, every whatever number you have. Small thing, it's in the theme settings and part of Blender 5.2, right? When was it? I made this 5 months ago, but it only got added. Oh no, actually this made it into 5. Yeah, this made it into 5.1, I believe. I think. Let's see. Yay, it's in 5.1. My last feature to make it into 5.1. Cool. Major grid lines. Major grid lines. Who gets the reference? Major grid lines. Okay, let's see. Video sequence editor. Bunch of changes. John Kittle Swenson added a strip retiming icon, so you can tell at a glance when something has been retimed. So if you adjust the timing of something, now Blender shows you this beautiful little icon there. That is actually technically not an icon for retiming, it's the icon for the time modifier from Grease Pencil, I believe. And yeah, that way you can tell at a glance if something has been adjusted or not in time, without actually having to go and click on it. And yeah, that's it. Let's see. Next. Oh, this is quality of life. Have you ever, in the video sequence editor, try to snap multiple items at once. Well, they will all be snapped in the same up to the same. If you have multiple strips and then you want to snap them all, like you have a line, right, and you have all the strips that are offset, they have their own offset, and you want to snap them to this line, they will all be moved to this line, which I guess is expected, but you also want a way to keep the offset, to just snap this and move everything while keeping that offset. That is not possible in Blender thanks to this improvement by John. So you can snap and it will keep that selection, but it's so cool because it actually, okay, this one, this is very Blendery. It has a bit of a learning curve, but once you use it, it's just amazing. Why? Because it uses the position of your cursor. So depending on where your cursor is, it's gonna be snapping into the left or the right hand side of the editor. So for example, if you snap it, and let's see. So say I have a new video edit and I have a color strip and let's use text strips because I have these 3 items here, right? And I want to snap them. I will press Shift S and it would snap the active item, because I selected this late, to this side, right? If I put it on the other side and I do Shift S, it's gonna get the end side of it, right? It's a bit of a learning curve, but once you know, oops, what happened? Oh no, I did okay, let me think. I think I'm gonna fix it here. I'm gonna change. So basically I press Control Z, like undo, when the mouse over OBS. So I undid the setting of the camera. Sorry about that. Back to action. Anyway, so yeah, there is a bit of a learning curve here. So you press Shift S to snap with this here, and it snaps to here. If my mouse is over here, it will snap the end of it. So you can have different behaviors depending on where your cursor is. And also it respects, as I mentioned before, the active strip. So if I have this active strip instead, then is what would happen. This will snap to here, bam. And if I put it on this side, I will snap the end of it to here. So flexible. Nice. And the same with either or. Anyway, that's it. That's the whole thing. You can disable that. It's in the redo panel. You can just change keep offset, and if you don't, then it will just behave as usual. Just move the whole thing there. But yeah, it's one of those things that you wouldn't believe it wasn't there before. I love this one. Thank you, John and Dalai, for helping out. We designed this together, actually, one of the design sessions. Let's move on. Shows thumbnails as strip ends by default. Yep. Have you noticed the strip? Do I have thumbnails? No. I don't have thumbnails here, I think. Yeah, okay. Anyway, so yeah, I just happened to I opened one of the files that I use for debugging, and I opened one that was all broken. But anyway, here, this is it. These are thumbnails in your strips, right? We know and love this. We have this for a while. However, by default, you will notice that now they look like this. And this is the new normal, the new default for thumbnails. It only will show thumbnail previews at the beginning and at the end of a strip. And if there's no more room, it will be whatever you have selected. So if I click on this side, I will see this preview. If I click on this side, I'll see this preview. I just happened to pick a picture, which is the worst example ever. But I guess you get the idea. Only drawing these thumbnails is actually faster. So it's a performance improvement. less thumbnails to create, and it still gives you a hint of what you're looking at. You can always switch to all the thumbnails, but continuous drawing, but by default is only at ends. More changes. Folk added the remaining items missing in the modifiers for the video sequence editor. These options, they were not there. The move to first, last, these were not there. So now they are. This panel, duplicate, copy to select, they're all here. So nice. Thank you, Folk, for bringing the modifiers closer to feature parity. I think they're pretty much there, no? Anyway, last but not least, there is a new strip type in the video sequence editor. This doesn't happen often. How often do we have an entire new stripe? It's so big that the website takes a while to load. Yeah, so there is a new stripe called Compositor. It's a new strip type that allows you to, instead of adding a modifier with Compositor, basically, now you can have this Compositor-based transitions, because it's a new strip that it's not a modifier for any of this. It's a new strip type somewhere else that has an effect that you can control to do a transition. And in that case, this is how the setup will look. You get the group input, which is one image, and then we get the image 2 and the factor. You get the image coordinates, snap the pixels to white noise texture. This is the fading. And then if it's less than a specific threshold, then you would use a mix factor to mix the image 1 and 2. So basically making a transition effect. This basically. Isn't that great? This boy is great. Nice. So yeah, Compositor transitions are finally a thing. This fusion of effects after the render is coming up. Next in line, I know what you're thinking. Yes, Pablo, this is great, but it's super slow. It's impossible to use. And I hear you. It is very, very slow because it's CPU bound at the moment. However, next in line is to make all of this work in the GPU. So stay tuned. But this is amazing. Like, the functionality is there. So only left is making it work in the Compositor. Performance. But actually today we've seen a lot of performance improvements in the Compositor. So I hope you are happy to see that, as happy I am. And that's it actually. There are changes in Vulkan. There are always changes in Vulkan improvements. And I forgot to make a new thread for the BlenderCommunity website. Right click, select. Somebody made it, so thank you so much. We still haven't fixed this error, but anyway, thank you. Let's see. There is a image and there are 5 questions, so let's see if I can reply them before more get added. Let's see. Okay. Hi Pablo, says FGPA Arthur the 7th. I think someone asked this many streams ago and we didn't understand the purposes. I sure didn't. But recently I tried to make extrude and extrude modifier through geometry nodes recently that allows to select the faces you wish to extrude non-destructively. I witnessed how impressive vertex group system is when you want to work with faces or edges instead. Not always Blender knows when it should pick the whole face or edge. Is there any plans on implementing face groups or edge groups? Can't you do that with geometry nodes already? Like face corner? I'm sorry, I think there's someone better to I don't know if I don't think there are plans for adding face groups or edge groups next to vertex groups. I think in the future is all attributes, so I'm not sure Or is it the implicit conversion that is by Lucas? Yeah. So there will be someone here that would be better capable of answering this. If I remember correctly, I think back in the day, Blender wanted to move away from vertex loop into yes, in prefer of introduction of something else. Yes, that's yeah. I mean, you can look at the list. There's always changes to attributes and all adding more attributes and attribute types and yeah, the future is attributes. David says, "Hi Pablo, other 2D software like have this thing called drawing substitutions. What it does is this function to do it is store the keyframe into drawing in some window. Like how Blender, the pose was stored. In Blender, if Blender had something that can store grease pencil keyframe drawings in somewhere else, maybe like asset library would be great help for 2D animator with lip sync." Okay, I think I get it. You want pose library for grease pencil keyframes. So basically grease pencil key mesh or assets. Yeah, but couldn't you do that with like shape keys, like moving, basically changing with a bone, which you can store the pose in to drive the position or shape keys or other things. Wouldn't that work? But yeah, I see what you mean. I don't know what this other software does, but I think it's a similar concept, substituting, like replacing drawings. Like cut out. No. Hola Pablo, how you doing? Doing great. How you doing? Was that the Joey reference? In 5.0, we got the menu switch node in the shader editor, which is a very nice addition. But how come just the menu switch was added and it's not its simpler version, the regular switch node? Now that I'm using geometry nodes on a regular basis, I'm barely missing the switch node in shaders when making node groups. That's a very good question, because usually in geometry nodes it was the other way around. I don't know exactly. But those kind of things you can actually just drop by in the chat of the module and just ask, or even make a right-click select proposal to introduce this node, or even just drop by and ask. Isn't like, hey, I noticed the menu switch was added, but the index switch not. So is it coming or not? I just at least to know the answer, because I'm not sure why not. It makes sense to have it. Next, I thought it would be nice to have compute shader support in geometry nodes. Similar to how open shading language, it seems to me that compute shaders would be a great fit for geometry nodes, especially for replacing complex mathematical calculations. So basically scripting nodes, I think it would make sense. What is the question though? Maybe I'm wrong. Compute shaders aren't good for geometry nodes for some reason. Well, compute, if it's a shader, wouldn't that make sense more in shader? I'm also curious of whether the support for texture painting is planned in geometry nodes as a replacement for dynamic paint. Well, no, that I know. You can do vertex paint for sure, but not dynamic, like texture painting. No, not that I know. Like changing bitmap images, no. Hola Pablo, hope you and everyone is doing well. I am. Glad I'm able to watch you live. Super happy you guys are working on the animation layer system in Blender. Yes, I know you guys are still working on Blender for tablets. So my question is regarding tablet feedback and ideas. I use Blender a lot on Windows, on my Windows tablet while traveling and in the couch. Where could we go to give you guys feedback or ideas for tablets overall? Right-click select area, which I normally do, or do you guys have a tablet focus area? I think on right-click select, if you do a user interface tablet thread would be nice. And you can drop by the channel in, I think it's in the, how is it called? It's iOS tablet, iOS/tablet. So it is, okay, how do I share this without sharing the whole planet privacy concern? Okay, let's see. So here, so this is the iOS tablet channel. Is public, everyone's welcome to join and drop by. And this one has some people giving feedback and discussing ideas. Actually, someone here says drop by a full standalone app for pie menus. Interesting. That's cool. But yeah, this actually, yeah, somebody's already doing it, implementing. This is all work in progress. People just dropping by and sharing experiments. But yeah, sorry for the music. I didn't know it had music in the background. I don't know if you heard that. No, I haven't. I think I have it muted. Anyway, yeah, so drop by the chat. All right, let's call it a day. It's Friday the 20th, so we'll get together in less than 2 weeks. Actually, that would be March. Gee, that would be March. So let's say the next one is March 3rd. One day before. I know that's May 4th. May the 4th. May 3rd. No, nothing big. Pi Day is in the 14th, so no. The next episode will be on the 3rd of March. We have some new features coming for Blender 5.2. Blender 5.1 would still not be released, but almost there. So it should look just the same, less bugs. But please, this is the time for you to report bugs. This is the time where you can make sure that Blender 5.1, the next big release, is as stable as possible. So please report, find. If you have some time, just download the beta, because downloading the alpha is fun and you can report bugs there, but then the bugs have to be reported back. So it's better if the test is done in beta, because we know it's like, okay, it's nothing of the new things, it's just the old changes. It's easier for developers to find out what broke it, because there are only bug fixes at the moment in that branch. So it's good to review, to triage. And that's it. That would be me for the next episode. By the way, did you know about our other channel before I go? The Blender Developers YouTube channel. It's a different YouTube channel that we also post things there sometimes. With the lie, we started the last year when I my title, my job switched from whatever I was doing before to UI designer, actual product designer, and doing more product design in Blender together with Alai and other developers here. And it's super nice. It's a great exercise. We are making many design tasks. One of them, or many of them, are moving into something more tangible. And when that happens with Alai, we decided to make it it's an advertisement. Anyway, I don't have the Jesus, do advertisements. Why advertisement? We don't have. Hey, I just realized this channel and the Blender Developers YouTube channel does not have monetization on. We don't have monetization. So me watching that stupid advertisement does not even help Blender in any way. Doesn't give us a penny. Where is that going? Well, I guess to the servers to maintain YouTube. I guess it's fine. YouTube is fine. But come on. Anyway. Okay, yeah, well, never mind. This is what we're making. If you want to go watch it, we have more planned. At the moment, we only have this one video, but we actually we've been making lots of design tasks, and we have targets for 2026, and we are making like well, actually the snapping of the things that we mentioned, that's part of this. We're now working, we did a task for ripple editing for the sequencer, like design tasks that eventually they will become their own thing. But the asset library, the data block filtering, like there's many design work that is going on that we hope to be able to share. Well, we share everything, literally everything we do, but share them in a video format once they are more fleshed out and the module is wanting to actually work on it. So, or is up for grabs for anyone. And we hope that with making the design process in Blender more public, more approachable, will increase the help that we get from the community, but also the interest from product designers out there that are interested in working for Blender, because we need product design, we need designers in Blender, and it would be great to have, but they're usually very expensive, or they don't have a lot of work that they can show, so it's hard to make a call for these people. So in Blender, developers, usually the best developers that we have in the community, they were community developers before. Yeah, basically they did work for free before working under contract, which is not always nice, but in a way it shows the passion for the project. And I hope with design we can see some designs from the community showing the way we work, and hopefully those people can, then we make the investment to hire them to be full-time, part-time, whatever, helping out with designs. That would be awesome. So that's something that we're working on in the future. For the time being, look at the Blender Developers YouTube channel for more Blender tomorrow, how we decided to call it. This is Blender today because everything is in main today. The other one is future. Okay, that's it. I would apply, but everything would have to be funny, says Harry Blend. Okay, let's see what's coming in the coming weeks. 2 weeks to be precise. Thank you for staying until the end. I had a very good time. I hope you did too. I will make the thread. I forgot to share the actual comments that I read in that thread. I will see you again next time, same place, about the same time, but on a Tuesday, for the next episode of BlenderToday Live. Bye. Thank you. See you.